let's talk about TÁR, of course, and it's a lot about power. So being successful and multiple nominated, honored artists like you brings you in the position of receiving and possessing power in a special way. So how are you aware of the fact, and how do you deal with that power, especially after a project like TÁR?
I suppose once you've kind of reached a certain level in your career, or are perceived to have, you've got a certain amount of influence, I guess, or a platform. And I think it reveals a lot about people as to how they use that or don't use that or misuse that. But it's also, I think you have to set that aside. That was what was so wonderful about working with Todd on this film, is that every day all of that stuff was, one's past was checked at the door, and we just kind of, there was so much to do that we just, it was this kind of, you had this ability to create this ensemble and this seamless membrane between the cast and crew, which is very rare, I think, because often we think about filmmaking in that sort of construct, but Todd's creates this really great level playing field.
Do you want to answer, or?
Yes, yes, I do.
Well, I mean, in terms of, yes, it's an examination of power, the film. That's what it's about. And as you say, you don't know a great deal about classical music, nor do you need to, you know. But in terms of, exactly what Cate's saying, you know, there is a certain, Cate has a large, storied, respected and revered body of work, and that can be very intimidating for people. So in terms of setting the tone for a working method, that tone was really set by Cate. Cate shows up, she's an artist, that's stuff is completely outside of who she is as an artist, and so you're able to sort of get on with it and do what you have to do.
And it's incredible to see you on the screen. It's pure joy, and how you bring fine nuances to the surface. So how do you both keep the intensity on every single shooting day, so that the audience, like me, can truly believe this is not Cate, this is Lydia Tara? So how do you keep the intensity on every single day, because you both work together?
I think we're probably rather intense people, just generally. So we fed off each other's
That's intensity. A very nice way of putting it.
But I was totally obsessed by this story, by the circumstances in which the character lived, and by the elusive nature of the character. There was so much to do. Mm-hmm. I think if we'd stopped to take a breath, we just wouldn't have achieved each day. So it's, you know, there was, while we were setting up for one thing, you were planning like 3 shots ahead, and we had 2 company moves, and we were about to lose a location. You know, like there was so much going on. And in a way, that energy, it's sort of, because the film is quite deceptively still, but there's this volcanic underbelly that I suppose the adrenaline needed to actually make the movie fed that texture, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. And also because, as Cate's saying, you know, it was logistically very challenging. And you know what it's like getting around Berlin, especially if there's a protest one day or something like that. And there was no safety net. There was no safety net for Cate as a performer. There was no safety net for production, in that we had so many days. We couldn't go over one day or even half a day. And so every single day was a tight wire act for all of us. You know?
And there are lots of reasons to criticize and dislike Lydia, but one of the most fascinating aspects for me has been, although I can see what Lydia is doing, I still feel love and kind of sympathy for her. So how do you both find the access to the character in that depth and variety, so I can also even feel with her in the very, very darkest moments?
Well, I wonder, I mean, Todd said something that was a really great clue, I think, for all of the performers at the beginning, is that he wanted to feel that the camera was like a fly on a wall. And so you knew that the camera and therefore the audience almost had a greater insight into the characters than the characters had from themselves. And she's someone who's very hidden from herself. She's got a lot of secrets, and not the secrets that are the obvious ones, the things that she's had to subjugate in order to get where she's got. And so I think that when the audience actually has greater insight into the soul and the circumstances of a character, you feel like you want to protect them, I think. And that was very much alive in the filmmaking, I think.
Yes. Well said. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, the other thing is, it's like, yes, there are behaviors that are not typically sort of reinforced in motion pictures that are unpleasant. And this character is, many things, and she's capricious, and she's hypocritical, and she's also generous, and she's also kind. She's many, many things, and you're seeing, as Cate says, you're seeing that from a certain distance, and you're watching that. But if you were to follow any of us around for 3 weeks of our lives, you would see those things too. None of us are sinners. None of us are saints. We all have our secrets. We all have our contradictions. We all have that contrast in us, So, I mean, that's the thing we were after, which is to, as much as we could, to have a point of view or a lens that was as three-dimensional of this character as possible. But really, it's eventually a testament. At the end of the day, it's a testament to her skill. I mean,
to my charisma.
No, to your skill. I mean, I've said this story many times, but it bears repeating, which is, when we were editing this film, and as Cate said, this was a logistically very, very challenging film, so we were running the whole time, and while what we saw on set would stop us cold in terms of the magical things that Cate would do with this character every day, we didn't see everything. And when we were editing, Monica and Willie and I, after just a few days, would just go. And we weren't watching Cate Blanchett anymore. We were watching this human being, and then how can you be fair with that human being? If it really is in fact a human being, if you're cutting a documentary, there are rules, in terms of fairness, so you're not leaning one way or the other.
But I think that, it's interesting you said when we started talking that you didn't know anything about classical music, and I only knew at the very surface level. But there's something that's alive in the film, I think, that we can all relate to, is that we do set ourselves social traps. And we get caught in these labyrinths of our own making, or a making within our sort of social circles or our familial circles, that is really recognisable, I think, in the character, that we feel her entrapment. And we feel that there's a kind of the noose is getting tighter and tighter around her neck, which I think we all do feel. It's very difficult to honestly express ourselves, our shadow selves, our darker sides, and the fact that she is unflinchingly honest in a way, yet profoundly self-deceiving.
Right.
I think we understand that kind of pull in the world in which we're all operating, no matter what we do with our lives, what our professions are.
Gratulation für so einen unfassbaren Ritt, aber auch schauspielerisch in so vielen verschiedenen Nuancen. Und das wäre jetzt auch direkt so die allererste Frage. Ich weiß, klar, Schauspielerei ist dein Beruf, deine Passion, aber wie schafft man es immer wieder in so einer Zusammenarbeit und auch in so einem unglaublich umfangreichen Film so kleine Nuancen zu finden, dass teilweise nur ein Blick von dir, also alleine wenn man es sieht im Orchester und nur dieser eine Blick, und der erzählt so viel mehr, als es 20 Sätze tun könnten. Wie findet man immer wieder diesen Zugang, diesen Weg zu sowas?
Ja, vielen Dank erstmal, das ist natürlich toll, das zu hören. Ich denke da manchmal drüber nach, ob mir das tatsächlich dann in dem Moment so bewusst ist. Das weiß ich nicht. Es ist eher auf dem Weg der Vorbereitung. Weißt du übst Violine und man lernt über Maler, man lernt über die Frau von Maler, Alma Mahler. Die gibt mir wieder Inspiration für wer diese Sharon ist. Warum bin ich mit Lydia Tarr zusammen? Was hat Sharon davon? Was hat sie zu verlieren? Und dann muss ich darüber nachdenken, oder möchte ich eben darüber nachdenken, wie guckt Sharon Lydia an und was sieht sie? Und in jedem Blick kann ich erzählen, sehe ich etwas Neues oder habe ich das schon mal gesehen? Kenne ich diese Situation, dass Lydia vielleicht jemand anderen interessant findet? Ist das eine gefährliche Situation oder ist Sharon in diesem Fall erwachsen und hat für sich entschieden, dass sie bei manchen Dingen nicht nachfragt? Und ist es jetzt in diesem Moment etwas, was vielleicht doch gefährlicher werden könnte? Also, all das muss ich irgendwie in mir geklärt haben, um in dem Blick klar zu sein, sodass du was darin lesen kannst. Ja. Also insofern, ich denke schon drüber nach, aber ich lasse auch in dem Moment einfach passieren, Aber ich muss sagen, ich finde ja, das sind mit die aufregendsten Momente, wo man nichts sagt. Weil man da den Menschen am ehesten erkennt. Weil man sich da nicht verstellen kann. Während du redest, kannst du ja aus dir was machen, sozusagen. Dich darstellen, so. Aber wenn du zuhörst, passieren manchmal so Dinge, die man nicht im Griff hat. Wenn man das so in Interviews beobachtet eben auch, ne? Dann passieren irgendwelche Sachen oder jemand hat einen Tick oder weiß der Teufel. Also es sind die spannendsten Momente, die Momente der Stille, finde ich, ja.
Und da gab es einfach so wirklich ganz viele, also ich hatte teilweise Gänsehaut, wenn man wirklich so dieses Band zwischen euch gespürt hat. Und ich finde es immer schön, wenn man nicht nur Dinge sieht, sondern wenn man sie spürt, dann funktionieren sie eben so richtig.
Tolles Kompliment, vielen Dank.
Gerne. Und was ich ja auch bei der Figurenkonstellation wahnsinnig spannend finde, ich habe bei beiden eine unglaubliche Sympathie und dennoch gibt es natürlich so viele Risse, bei denen man entweder schütteln möchte oder auch bei Lydia, dass ich sage, Alter, also was ist denn los? Aber es bleibt trotzdem, ich bleibe immer so nah bei euch. Wie hast du deine Figur selber irgendwie kennengelernt und wie bist du da so reingetaucht, dass du sie auch auf eine gewisse Art und Weise natürlich lieb haben kannst, aber gleichzeitig auch, dass du auf diese Risse kommst, auch natürlich in Bezug zu TÁR. Wie hast du das wahrgenommen, diese ganzen verschiedenen Risse in den Figuren?
Naja, wir haben erstens darüber natürlich gesprochen und wir haben auch über die Hintergrundgeschichte dieses Paares gesprochen. Und ich habe in erster Linie erstmal einen großen Respekt vor Sharon auch gehabt. Weil ich dachte, man wird nicht so leicht Konzertmeisterin. Das ist das ist die machtvollste Position im Orchester nach der Dirigentin. Und es ist eine Position, das konnte ich wunderbar beobachten mit der wirklichen ersten Geige Wolfgang von der Dresdner Philharmonie. Du musst eine unfassbar gute Musikerin sein. Du bist ständig unter Beobachtung, ob du es auch immer wieder bringst. Du leitest das Orchester an, falls mal irgendwas mit dem Dirigenten, falls der Rhythmus irgendwie nicht stimmt, guckt das gesamte Orchester auf dich und du gibst den Rhythmus. Wusste ich alles nicht. Und gleichzeitig musst du ein Psychologe sein. Du bist ja die Verbindungsstelle zwischen Dirigent und Orchester. Wenn sich irgendjemand angegriffen wird oder nicht wohlfühlt oder er hat irgendwelche Sorgen und so weiter, ist der Konzertmeister die oder derjenige, der das klären muss. Und also du musst deine Sinne müssen unwahrscheinlich offen sein. Und das hat mir für Sharon natürlich viel gegeben, das auch richtig physisch zu erleben, was das für eine Aufgabe ist für sie. Und gleichzeitig ist sie eben eine passionierte Musikerin und findet in Lydia jemanden, die wirklich nach einem speziellen Klang sucht, die so erfüllt ist von Musik, die Musik im Kopf hat, was, glaube ich, Sharon noch mal in andere Sphären einfach hebt. Und deswegen, da treffen sich die beiden eben auch. Und für mich ist es aber so ein Symbolbild der Zeitpunkt, zu dem wir dieses Paar treffen, ist dieses große Grand Piano in der Wohnung, was aussieht eher wie ein Sarg als wie ein Instrument. Es ist also im Moment es ist still. Es ist still zwischen denen und das sind die Risse. Es ist also Sharon hängt etwas nach, sie hängt etwas hinterher und sie spürt, irgendwas rutscht ihr weg und sie weiß nicht ganz genau, wie sie da rankommt und wie sie das auffangen soll. Und gleichzeitig hat sie viel zu verlieren, wenn sie Lydia verliert. Also in jeglicher Hinsicht, den geliebten Menschen, aber eben auch, sie muss ihre Karriere schützen und sie muss ihr Kind schützen. Ja, es ist viel drin. Ja, es war spannend, es war toll, dran zu arbeiten.
Und wenn ich dürfte, würde ich dir jetzt am liebsten noch eine halbe Stunde zuhören.
Ach,
aber nee, großartig. Und hoffe,
Klasse.
dass ihr heute noch einen fantastischen Abend haben
Ja,
werdet.
hoffentlich.
Sie müssen im Endeffekt vor dem Publikum und Gott stehen und sich selbst zerstören. Sie machen mir Angst.
Well, I don't feel like I ever made that decision. I think both my parents are musicians, so you know, making music, playing music, it was just a normal thing to do in our household. So you know, the official story is that, you know, when my mother was pregnant with me, she was listening to Algar, actually, to Jacqueline Dupre's performance of Algar all the time, and she said this child will be called Hildur and she will be a cellist. And boom. My parents are not musicians, but they noticed that I was, I guess, responding to music quite a lot. I think I'd say things like, "Mum, the prince and the princess would not listen to this pop music, turn it off, honestly, like, what is this?" And stuff like that. And I wanted to be a figure skater, like, for a big part of, I guess, my very early years. And so they saw me responding to the music, so they asked if I would be interested in playing an instrument, and I was like, yeah. And so they signed me up to something called this first string experience. So we spent a year learning melodies by ear, so kind of repeating them, singing and clapping, and I think it's been really, really important for me, and I think a lot of what I do is based on learning things by ear, and it helps me learn languages and dialects, so I think it's been really great in that respect. And then the year after, we got the choice of playing violin, cello, double bass. I don't know why they didn't include viola, but I don't know. So exactly, I didn't want to play the violin because you had to stand up while playing and it was kind of too loud in your ear. I didn't want to play the double bass because it was too growly, so I chose the cello because you got to sit down while playing it. Despite being the most hyperactive child, I bet the only time I actually sat down was to play one note and then I ran off in the other direction. But I think it was a really good outlet for me and all my emotions. Like you say, with music you can say a lot of things that you can't express with words, and I think it was really, really important for me to have this outlet and way of kind of expressing myself. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also something about being able to hold it close, and it's got the same kind of similar to the human voice as well, in terms of register. I think all those kind of things were very attractive qualities to me. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I think in some ways it is, if music is your job, and music is what you're expected to deliver, to a certain standard, I think it's probably more important than ever that you keep the ability to lose yourself in the music alive. You have to, I think you really have to nurture that quality and that feeling, and it's really precious, and it's very delicate, so you have to approach it with non-force. You have to be very careful with it, but you also have to make sure that you make space for getting lost, because if you just, if you think that you can just deliver on demand without making that space, I think it will become very boring for everyone, the audience and mostly yourself, So I think I found in the later years it's more important than ever that I take time to practice, and that I take time to just make the space for myself to get lost and push everyone else away, because I think that's the only way to really keep the music alive. Yeah. I mean, I'm still quite at the beginning, so I wouldn't say that I have so much experience yet, but I completely agree, having boundaries, and when I'm at college practicing, I lock my phone in my locker, and my mum gave me her old watch, so I don't ever reply to any emails or phone calls while I'm practicing, because I find practice incredibly kind of meditative, and when I don't practice I always feel a bit like something's not quite right. But I think Oh, I came up with an idea and now I've forgotten what it was. But yeah, so the boundaries, and then I think I used to struggle a lot with feeling like my performances weren't good enough for the standard I had. And someone said to me, you know, we're very lucky to be musicians. We're not surgeons, no one dies if it goes wrong, you know? And someone also said, like, you know, I think it was Vikingur Olafsson, he was in Rome, and he said something like, when I next get stage fright, I will think of all the gladiators and appreciate my cozy little existence. And that really spoke to me, you know? We have a really lovely job, which is to help people experience emotions and to transport people to a different place.